Tim Kennedy, welcome to the World Class Dads podcast, brother.
Hey, thanks
All
for
right,
having me.
so this is perfect because in my head, wanted to make this our special Christmas episode because I heard you say on Instagram that nobody Christmases like you do. And you've got a nutcracker in the background. I just got the little tour of your living room and it
He's
seems to be
gigantic.
true.
Yeah.
So
This is the kid table.
yes, beautiful. For those listening, we're looking at stuffed animals, Christmas trees, Santa on a ladder in the background. We've got it all.
It gets more silly the more you go that way.
It's beautiful. So, do you do any specific like Christmas traditions with your family and your kids?
We do a whole bunch. One, this is the first time I get to hunt with my 5-year-old. So from Thanksgiving on, obviously it's hunting season in Texas. So I'm going to take my 5-year-old on an axis hunt, an axis deer hunt
Nice.
next week. So I'm really excited about that.
How long will that be?
It'll just be one day of work, so a couple of days to get everything set up, but I'm trying to make it a really good experience for him. So it's like we're gonna do a blind hunt. He's gonna have a little sleeping bag and a big Carhartt jacket. I'm using a suppressed rifle. So it'll be really comfortable to try to break the ice into this world. But with my older kids, that was my nephew that lived with us. That was a tradition. And then we, as protectors, the thought of a random stranger, a man at that, sneaking into our house in the middle of the night is kind of scary. So we take measures to prevent the entry of anyone.
Some guard on the fireplace, I hope.
Yeah.
Guard those easy points of access.
Yeah. My son is convinced that I have an agreement with Santa Claus that allows him to come into our house because our house is a fortress. So
that's awesome. I love it. And what ages are your kids?
1, 5, 17, and 18.
Okay. So you got a full load there, full group.
Yeah, quite the spread.
Almost a basketball team. So, I'm working on putting together what the intro of this episode is going to be, and it's already a mouthful. It might be half the episode. What do you say when people ask what you do?
It depends on who I'm talking to. That's funny. You can't ever say, I'm a Green Beret, I'm a sniper, I am a entrepreneur of multiple small businesses, I'm a television host, I'm a public speaker, I'm an author. So it kind of depends on the context that I'm talking to them before I say who and what I am. But I think the big takeaway for most people is that I'm a doer of things.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that. A lot of things. And the thing that really grabbed my attention, I think the first I heard of you was on Tim Ferriss's podcast a few years ago. And then, of course, like many, I go down the Tim Kennedy rabbit hole, listening to podcasts and getting all pumped up by your psychopath workouts and all the cool shit you do. And what I quickly realized, probably in that first conversation I listened to with you and Tim, was that the things you do at a high level. You don't half-ass it, and you do a lot of those things. And on that list, probably at the top of that list, is your family and being a dad. So as a new dad myself, who has high professional ambitions, I am so curious how you continuously show up at these different things that you're taking on and these different endeavors, performing at the highest level, but never sacrificing being a dad and putting your family in the forefront.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a hard question to answer in short form.
Yeah.
The characteristics that make you successful at a thing, good leadership, effective time management, organization, decision making, risk management, those are things that carry into every single spectrum. So when you start developing those skill sets, and they're not things that people are born with. You're not born a great organizer. You're not born a great decision maker. You're not born with the ability to evaluate risk and make decisions accordingly. So those are things that are learned, unfortunately, oftentimes through pain and suffering, and in my case, through failure, because I failed at a lot of those things. But they positively contribute to all of the areas that you have to be successful in. So whether you're entrepreneurial or you're a UFC fighter or you're a Green Beret, like I don't want to be just a Green Beret. I want to be in the most elite unit within the Green Berets.
Mm,
I don't want to be just a business owner. I want to be a business owner of successful, powerful companies that are positively contributing to society. I don't want to be a father. I want to be a father to amazing children that are meeting their full entire potential, and they themselves are going to be contributors to society. So why would I half-ass at anything? Because if you are half-assing at one thing, you're absolutely half-assing at everything else. So if you start applying that same strategic approach to how you live your life, what you see is success bleeds over into success and bleeds over into success and bleeds over into success into all the different realms, as long as you are still being effective at those kind of core tenets of
mm.
who you are as an individual.
So how do you take that, say tomorrow? All right, actually, here's a good example. You're starting a school in the next school year, which
Yeah,
I want to get into. But how do you take everything that's already on your plate and show up and make sure that you're creating the best school for your kids, not to mention the other
yeah,
kids who are going there, but not neglecting your dad duties and still, being number one dad.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you hit the nail on the head there with the initial question. This is, you said not just for your kids, but I am doing it just for my kids.
Mm,
I want my kids to go to the best school that exists on the planet, and I want them to be taught by the best and brightest minds that I can have access to. And I want them to be in a school that is the most conducive to learning. And I want it to be a place, a physical place that is the safest place on the planet. Like that's for my kids.
yeah,
And then everything else for other kids, that's just a byproduct of
nice.
what I'm doing for my kids.
Mm,
So yeah, we're gonna have the best teacher on the planet, teachers, like guides, and we're gonna have a building that has security measures that like I won't even go into because they're so insane. Um, so every student there is without a doubt safe, and you can't be in an environment that's conducive to learning unless that you know that you're safe. And then the environment itself, right? We're not gonna have lines of desks for kids to sit there for 6 hours at a time and have somebody spout useless information at them, right? There's going to be balls and there's going to be trampolines and there's going to be little standing desks. I would not be surprised if there's not a single desk in that whole entire building. It's just going to be for the sole purpose of young men and women being able to do, not to learn to know. They're going to learn to be able to do, and they're going to learn to be. And those are vastly different things.
and
Like, I don't want
what's
them to be able to regurgitate information. I want them to be able to take the information and be able to do things with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key. What sparked that for you to want to create that school? Is it just because it didn't exist?
Um, I think it exists in lots of different variant forms and fashion. From I think Montessori is a great example of that. I think Acton academies are great examples of that. The disruptive education Socratic method, but all of them, albeit, if you do a Venn diagram, you're going to see lots of overlap between like
Mhm.
a Montessori and an Acton, and from an Acton to some private pod charter homeschools. But I like organized, structured environments that then create um, the opportunity for creativity. When you look at masters and composers and sculptors, you're like, it's not like Beethoven and Mozart were able to just sit down in the middle of chaos and write. They had to have a structure
Mhm.
that created an environment for them to do brilliant things. An architect and an engineer, they don't walk into um, the middle of a police station or a jail downtown where they're doing in doc of all the personnel and criminals that are about to go into jail and start drawing out schematics for the next bridge they're going to build, right? They
Hmm.
go into the office and they have all of the right tools that enable them to, that empower them to be able to do the right thing. So we have to create that. For me, there's a little bit of trauma where, I'm not exaggerating. I was literally belted and duct taped to chairs so I would do my school. I was spanked physically, like in private schools that I went to. I was kicked out of schools, and teachers saying that I had to be medicated. Like there's
Hmm.
something wrong with this kid, and there's nothing wrong with that kid. That was just a 6-year-old boy doing 6-year-old boy stuff, and you thought that you could take a 6-year-old boy and strap him physically, duct tape him to a chair. Like it's abuse now, right? We know
Right.
that, but retrospectively looking back, there's nothing. And look at my son who has hair down. Have you seen Last of the Mohicans?
Yeah.
Do you remember the beginning where they're playing lacrosse? Um, the early Native American version of lacrosse, and they have the baskets with the balls, but the hair goes down to the middle of their back, and they're just vascular, ripped, hard toned, muscled. They look like savages, and they're just playing a game in the front yard. That's what my 5-year-old looks like. And if you think for a second that you could take that 5-year-old and you could sit him down in a chair and that you could lecture him for 6 hours, and one, he would retain any of it, and two, he wouldn't burn that chair and the entire building to the ground, like you're insane. So the motivation for this school was knowing that there's opportunity for greatness in a conducive environment, and you just have to let them be.
Hmm.
And so I was able to graduate from high school at 15, college by 19. I was in grad school when I was 20. When 9/11 happened, I enlisted. My wife, the exact same. She graduated from high school at 15. She was done with her undergrad at like 18, almost 19.
Wow.
And then she's in grad school when I meet her, and she's 20 years old. And the thing that you see about both of us was there was a structured environment that created us to flourish. It was an environment that we, as the individual, and every single kid has their own gifts, but they have to be in a place where those gifts can be realized.
Hmm.
Otherwise, they're stunted. They're sometimes neutered and emasculated. Sometimes they're beaten out of them. Like I'm not sure if you've been to like proper formal public schools of late, but they are not places where a kid's creative imagination can flourish and grow.
Hmm.
And for a kid, those creative imaginations, those juices, those are the things that fuel the
Right.
ability to learn. But they sit there and they pound it out of them with structure, and they pound it out of them with books and curriculum, and they punish them for wanting to play. If you are a 5-year-old to an 8-year-old, there's probably not a moment in the whole entire time that you're at school that's going to feel like school. It will just feel like you're playing all day long.
Hmm.
But in that play is the way that you teach.
Yeah. So how, with you coming up and really them trying to force you into that kind of conformity and that structure, how did you still kind of come out of that on the other side, beating to your own drum and
Yeah.
with your own Tim Kennedy badassery approach to life?
Sure, you have surmised that I'm not one that caves or cowers easily.
Mm.
I'm not one that's molded or shaped. I am, you know, I get messages all the time, sometimes letters or DMs, and they're like, "Hey man, love what you're doing. Keep it up." And I was like, "Bro, you're gonna see the same thing from me for the next 40 years because I'm too old and I'm too dumb to do anything different." And this, like I've been so blessed because I know why I'm here. I know what I'm supposed to do. And then everything else is just white noise that's trying to interrupt my purpose.
Hmm.
And I won't be distracted from it. So even young, like if you go to North County Christian School in Atascadero, California, and you pull out Tim Kennedy's journal, which my mom still has, you're going to see that Tim Kennedy is going to be a firefighter. He's going to be a martial arts fighter. He's
Mm.
going to be a ranger, and he's going to be a pilot. I am all of those things,
Wow.
right? And I was 5. And there's little
Yeah.
pictures with a hair, like I wasn't a hairy-handed knuckle dragger then, but I was still an ogre. I was a troll, and nothing has changed. That same vision, and this is a huge credit to my parents because they created that environment. That environment that I'm talking about, they created that for me. So they pulled me out of school, and then I'm skipping second grade, and then I'm skipping fifth grade, and then like I'm a September born kid that skipped 2 grades. So then when I go to apply to college, they're like, oh, we'll just roll you into the a year earlier because you're a September 1st kid. So now I'm 4 years ahead.
Mm.
It's just like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
do this.
So have you seen that same clarity in your kids, just kind of having that focus and that clarity in their life of where they want to head?
So for my teenage daughters, they and this is, and every kid is different. They're figuring it out,
Yeah.
and the process of figuring it out, I think, is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't want people to misunderstand. Like I had a template and a path that I was going to execute.
Right.
When I was 21, I had a couple of women pregnant. I thought I was dying of AIDS, and I was more worried about what jeans I was going to wear to the next party. Like there was no selflessness, there was no courage, there was no character. I was a
Mm.
horrible human, and there was obviously lots of failure. So like I had to figure it out too. Fortunately, my big girls, the teenagers, they're figuring out in the right constructive ways. They're working a couple of jobs, going to school, going to college. And the pains and sufferings of figuring out how to be an adult is fun to watch. But they all have the ability, when that there is singular focus, they can do anything. And it's almost frightening to watch when they commit that focus to a thing.
That's awesome. So, this school thing is so incredible what you're doing there, and not only giving, creating those opportunities for your kids, but then the other lives they'll touch. For dads in general, though, what do you see as their responsibility in the education of their children? Because clearly you can't just send them off to school and trust the educational system, and most people won't have access to the Tim Kennedy school. What role do you see dads playing, and how do you think about that?
Um, the responsibility of educating your children is your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Teachers and schools and the institutions of education, they're only tools, right? They're tools that
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to leverage for your children in the best way possible. So what schools or what types of education, or it's disruptive, Socratic, classical, like whatever that is, that should be tailored to your child. And not every family has the opportunity to choose, right? I
Right.
realize that I don't, can't afford to go to a Montessori. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine. You have to work, so you can't homeschool your kids. That's fine. That doesn't mean the onus of educating your kids is off of you. It's
Right.
still your job. So as a father, um, so there's a Colonel Hal Moore. He had a Command Sergeant Major Plumley, and they fought in the Battle of La Dang, the Valley of La Dang, in 1965 in Vietnam. And in that battle, the battle was made famous by a book called "We Were Soldiers," and "We Were Soldiers Young Once," I think is the name of it. And then they made a movie with Mel Gibson,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called "We Were Soldiers." And Hal Moore was famous because he would say this promise to his men: "I'm going to be the first one there, and I'm going to be the last one to leave, and I'm not going to leave anybody behind." And both in the physical and metaphorical sense. So like it wasn't this philosophical, existential perspective. He was saying, I'm gonna work harder. I'm gonna be physically the first one there, but also mentally and emotionally, right? I'm gonna be
Mm-hmm.
present. And then even after this is done, I'm still physically present. I'm the last one to physically, emotionally, and intellectually leave. And at no point at any juncture of this journey am I going to leave you behind. Now take that and apply that to being a father. So that means that you're up first and not just awake. I'm talking about being present, being physically, emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually present. You're first.
Mm-hmm.
That means that you're healthy. That means that you're strong. That means that you are ready to, as soon as those beautiful eyes wake up in the morning, that you are standing by to guide them.
Yeah.
And then you're present all day long in every single way that you could possibly be, in every single imaginable capacity. And then finally, those beautiful eyes lay down in bed and they go to sleep, but you're still there because
Mm-hmm.
you're the last one to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it means to be the educator and head of household for your family.
Yeah. And you talked about strength and the importance of being strong as a dad. You know, what impact and what is strength as specifically as a dad? Why is that important?
I mean, there's this straightforward. I argue if my kids were here, my 1-year-old's over there playing with a gigantic nutcracker, and my 5-year-old's playing in this big box right there. And the Mongolian horde kicks in my front door with battle axes. I'm gonna wear their skin to the dinner table, right? Like, hey, yeah, I just got 8 new birthday suits because I'm gonna have to kill all 8 of those guys, and it would be not a big problem. Um, it'd be bloody, it would be a mess, but we're at the crosswalk at the park, and a car, a 16-year-old kid playing on his phone goes to zip through the intersection. I'm going to be able to whisk my kids away, both of them, with fast reflexes and strength, where I can literally pick up my teenage kids and throw them through the air.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's playing lacrosse, I could play with him for hours.
Right.
If we were going to play tag, I could play with him for hours. If we're going to ride bikes, we're going to play for hours. But mostly I think physically strong also develops character. There's not a lot of ways to build character.
Mm-hmm.
You have to fail and you have to struggle and you have to be met with the opportunity to fail and choose to take that leap that maybe you're not going to be successful at this, but you're going to try. And your kids see that. Like he can walk out into our garage and he can see me out there sweating, and he can see my chunky hands with calluses falling off of it. And he can see me try to deadlift 425, and he can see me fail. And then 2 weeks from now, he'll see me lift 425. Right. So that's the onus of showing them what it looks like to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
And my girls, they're going to find a man that is like me.
Right.
Especially the faults that I have, the times that I was absent, the times that I wasn't present, the times that I wasn't there. And all of those weaknesses, they're going to find somebody that will fill those voids. That's a really scary thing. So you should be strong.
Yeah. It's funny hearing you talk about that, because I think about my own kind of fitness journey, and there's the early years where, I get introduced to it through sports, things like that, and want to improve. But let's be honest, it's all about trying to impress the ladies when you're a young guy working out, at least for me. Eventually get married, and all of a sudden it shifts a little bit where it's just trying to be, the man that you want to be and that my wife deserves. But now with a daughter, it shifts again to now I just want to be around for a long time, and 2, be that big bad dad that she can rely on. She can tackle, he can throw her over her shoulder, and for years to come. And this is just the first one. So I've seen that shift in my in my own life, but it's interesting hearing you talk about it too, especially given your profession, well, one of your professions, and the demands of your physicality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of which, so you've seen probably a lot of the darker sides of humanity that not most people are previewed to. I know certainly I haven't been. How does that, or has that impacted your approach to family and fatherhood?
Um, it's different. There's a video of me taking at the time, my 15-year-old daughter, and having two of my friends, while she was working out at the gym, sneak into the back into the locker room, throw a bag over her head, and carry her out the back of the gym and load her into a van. She was in Europe, and she had kind of like walked away to do her own thing. And I was so scared, having worked in counter human trafficking and counter sex trafficking, and like how fast those young girls disappear over there.
Mm-hmm.
And she was right in the window, and but they, at 15, they know everything,
Right.
and they're invincible. So um, I think for any other child on the planet to have two strangers run into the back of the gym and throw a black bag over her head and carry them out, that'd be like a permanent traumatic experience, you know. But of course, my kids are like me, and they're different than all the other kids on the planet. And the moment that you can watch the video, it's amazing. The moment that the bag comes off, she like her eyes are wide and she's looking around, and then she looks up and she sees me. And the moment she sees me, you see her shoulders relax, and you see her eyes go from wide to acknowledging. And the
Mm-hmm.
first words out of her mouth after literally being carried out the back of the gym, and she didn't know. She didn't know. It's like she had no idea.
Right.
Was, "Okay, Dad, I got it."
Mm-hmm.
And one, like, what a beautiful spirit that young woman had and has. But also, like think about the neural pathways of being in probably one of the most scariest moments of her life, and then the moment that it's over, it's immediate recognition and acknowledgement to what the purpose of that was.
Yeah.
I'm bragging a little bit because like I'm so in love with my kids, but um, it's because of the things that I've done and because of the things that I've seen, I take extra precautions to make them safe.
Yeah, no, that I think you're right that might cause some trauma in in some kids, but I did see that video, and it's pretty fascinating to watch. Um, are there any times, or are there any experiences, or just general concepts? Because you talked earlier about how failure has been your greatest teacher, and you failed a lot, but that's made you better. Is there any kind of concepts or failures that you've experienced within fatherhood that ultimately, or perceived failures at the time, that have ultimately made you a better dad, that younger dads might be able to learn from?
Yeah, I mean, with my big girls, you know, fighting for world championships, fighting for the UFC and fighting for Strikeforce, all the while I'm deploying overseas. I was absent often. Um, and some of it I had a say in, some of it I didn't. I
Mm-hmm.
chose to be in the Army, but when they tell me to go overseas, I have to go overseas. When they say I have to go to a school, I have to go to a school.
Right.
And for my big girls, I missed big moments. I missed graduations, I missed concerts, I missed recitals, and I missed like the day to day moments of them seeing success and failure, and how does a man respond to failure. And with my young kids now, I try to be present for everything, not like a helicopter way, but like in the ways that matter to them. I try to
Mm-hmm.
be there for that. And so like that was a huge failure as a young father, and figuring out for the first time was how much I missed. You don't get a second chance,
Mm,
right? You miss a moment, you don't get to redo that moment. There's no
right.
mulligans.
Right. And you just said something interesting being there for the way that's important for them. What is that? How have you discovered what those ways are? Is that just being around them and in tune to their feelings and their experience?
Yeah. So for my big daughter, it was, and they're different for every single kid. Um, she wanted to be there in those ceremonial moments, right? Like graduations
Mm-hmm.
and concerts, which is funny because like those things don't matter at all to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've so many awards and so many fights and so many ceremonies. Like I detest ceremony. Like it's the pageantry of the military, and
Yeah.
I've had so much success in there that like it felt like there was one every single month. But they were important to her. So I projected my own preferences onto her, and then I missed those moments for her.
Mm.
What's up, boy? What? Where did you get that? Yeah, look at this guy.
Oh yeah. Now we're talking.
Yeah, it's intense.
Wearing the Christmas light necklace. So,
Yeah,
so
with an ugly Christmas
it's
sweater.
not just Tim Kennedy who is the Christmas
No,
aficionado. It's the little
no, it's
Kennedys as
all of them.
well.
Halloween was just as bad. And then for the baby, the 1 year old, the moment she wakes up, the only thing she wants to see is me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like dad, 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 dad. And um, whether I'm outside in the garage or I'm already in my office working or I'm in the kitchen cooking breakfast for him, whatever time those little hazel eyes pop open, there's one thing that she wants to see. And I think that's going to carry through for the rest of her life. My 5 year old, to be there for him is so he has questions. Like there's a boy at school that's kind of mean and says mean things. And every time that they have show and tell, Rolo, my son, the other kid's like a one upper. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, well, you have two Beyblades. Well, I have 14 Beyblades. And
Mm-hmm.
then my son comes home and he's like, Dad, can you buy me 13 Beyblades so I can have more Beyblades than this other kid? And I was like,
Yeah.
absolutely not. No, as a matter of fact, give me your two Beyblades. You don't need them. And he's like, what do you mean I don't need them? And it's like, you never need something to be better than somebody else. You just need something that makes you happy, and you don't even need things to be happy.
Right.
But it's those moments and it's those questions. Those are the things that he doesn't want his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's a little mama's boy, at those questions he needs me,
Yeah.
and I have to be there for that, and I have to be intellectually and emotionally and physically present to be able to have the capacity to fairly answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah. And the emotional presence there is so key. Like if you're just
Yeah,
in the middle of a podcast interview and your boy comes up and you're not willing to acknowledge him, you might miss those things. But that's one of the things I love
yeah,
about you, now, and then I've heard you on other shows. You don't let those moments slide by without giving that attention. And I think that's so cool because I've been on these conversations when that's not the case. And it's not I don't it's not something I would ever judge anyone for. And I'm guilty of that. But I really respect that of you, that it doesn't matter what else is going on. That little person in front of you is the most important thing at that point in time.
yeah, no doubt.
That's cool. So, what values is this something that you're conscious of? And this is something I've been really fascinated learning about from some of our guests. Like Brent Gleason was just on the other day, and he talked about the values that he's instilling in his family and their family values. And it's something that I'm starting to think about more and more. And so, I'm curious from your perspective, are there specific values that you try to instill in your kids and within your family? Or is it just living your life according to kind of your core values and letting them soak that in based on your behaviors?
Um, and I think like the Judeo-Christian perspective of like right and wrong
Mm-hmm.
is pretty spot on, right? And that goes across all religions. But the tenet, the kind of foundations of the golden rule, do unto others as you want them to do unto you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't steal, don't hurt. Those are like pretty straightforward values, right?
Right.
Um, the like, not to lie, like you in this household, you have a way higher consequence from lying than for anything else that you could do.
Mm,
Like, he could literally go over to the wine cabinet and smash a $200 bottle of wine, and of course he's going to get in trouble for being inconsiderate and not taking care of somebody else's stuff. But that would be like, you're going to have to go work off that
mm,
in chores, compared to, oh no, I didn't break it, the dog knocked it off.
right.
Right, like, now we're talking serious consequences of the wrath and hell and fury. So, like, I care more about the character, and I think
Mm.
values shape character. And the best way to shape character is put people into positions that those values are challenged,
And how
and
do you
then
do that
just,
with them?
oh, sports, interactions with other kids, on the
Yeah.
playground, like sharing and truth and considerate and empathy, like all of those, that happens on the playground.
Yeah. Yeah. Life has a way
Just
of
like
serving
learning.
up those opportunities.
100%. Yeah.
So, you talked about those things that are important to your kids with you, and you being present for it. What about you? What are the things that when you see in your kids, you just light you up inside and make you more proud of them than anything else could? Are there certain things that you've seen in the past that just blow you away with them?
Absolutely. So my 1-year-old was on the trampoline with my 5-year-old, and he, just a few weeks beforehand, had gotten stung by a yellow jacket that somehow was able to make it into his playroom, and it
Hmm.
stung him on the foot 3 times. And it was screams of bloody murder in his playroom as we went in there. And I'm looking at his foot and I see 3 little red dots. I'm like, what is this? And then I see the yellow jacket on the ground. I was like, buddy, I'm so sorry. So I kill it, and we put an ice pack on it. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and he's out on the trampoline with his little sister, and a yellow jacket lands next to her. He just got
Yeah.
stung just a few days before that. What do you think he does? He runs over, and he goes to hit it and knock it off with his bare hands. And
Protects
it's
his
just like,
sister.
that's fucking right.
Yeah.
Like, that's right, boy. You know, it's
That's
badass.
awesome. That is
Yeah.
badass. Yeah. It's all, it reminds me of, just a video of that kid who saves his sister from the dog that's coming to attack him. He gets beat up,
Yep.
but he fights off the dog. Oh my God. I got emotional when I
I
read that
cried. I
story.
cried when I
Yeah.
read that story. Yeah. And the mom wouldn't even post about it. And this is such a testament to the parents, because the dad and the mom, they're just proud of their kid. But
Yeah.
it was actually, the aunt that posted about it.
Wow.
And she's like, I can't not say how amazing my nephew is, as his little sister's walking down the road and a dog is running at her to bite her face off. The little boy says, if somebody's going to get bit, it's going to be me. You're like, fuck, get out of here. Like,
Yeah. Unbelievable.
make that kid president.
Yeah. And that comes from the
Unbelievable.
parents. You're right. And that comes from, having a strong mom, having a strong dad, and then being
Yep.
able to instill that.
Yep.
That's badass. Um, I'm sure just based on the life that you've led and the success you've experienced, and then also people seeing that you're just a kick-ass dad, that people, especially new dads, have asked you in the past kind of what advice you might have. Or if they haven't, then I'm asking you personally, for me, for young dads or new dads out there, is there any specific advice that you would impart upon them as they're just diving into this crazy world of fatherhood?
Yeah. You have to be a healthy thing as an individual, right? Like, when I say healthy, I'm not just talking about like fitness, which totally
Mm-hmm.
matters, right? I'm not just talking about like spirituality, which totally matters,
Mm-hmm.
like emotional capacity, which absolutely matters. I'm talking like a functioning, high functioning person, right? Like that means that you're a good lover to your wife, and that means that you're
Mm-hmm.
getting good, healthy sleep, and that means that you're like eating healthy, and that means that you're exercising every single day, and that means that you're a good employee, and that means that you're a good steward, that means that you're um, a good citizen. Like you have to be all of those things. You can't not be any of those things and think that you're still going to be a good dad, right?
Yeah.
Like I see assholes that like go and pretend to be a good parent, and I'm like, everybody sees through that, right? Like you're the Disneyland dad, and nothing's going to change positively for that kid because you're there for that moment.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be there for the moments, and they see all those kids are. These kids are so smart. They're so smart. They they
That's
they
crazy.
process information faster than you and I have ever have in our whole entire life. They've been marketed to from the moment they're born until the moment they're standing there in front of us in a variety of platforms that we can't even understand the algorithms that go into it, but they do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Consciously and subconsciously. And you know, so your baby is 6 months old and it's saying blah 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 da boo 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 boo, right? It knows every single word that you're saying, and more importantly, it understands the intent behind those words.
Mm-hmm.
And everything about how one human interacts with another human, they're learning from watching and hearing you. So you can try and grab those moments and think that you can shape the character and you that you can impart values, but they're learning all of those from all of the moments outside of the moments that you think you're teaching,
Mm-hmm.
because they're watching all the time.
Yeah. And how for just for men in general, we talked a little bit about physical fitness and exercise and how that helps build character. But what things do you recommend just to be a better guy? Like, I think folks who listen to podcasts like this have that intention that they want to
Yeah.
improve themselves and show up in a better way. But do you have concrete ways that you recommend guys, improve upon themselves and especially with their character and those things that really matter to their kids?
Yeah. I like jujitsu. Um, Jujitsu is you can be the biggest, strongest, baddest dude in the world, and you're still going to get in there and get humbled all the time.
Mm,
You know, like I'm a multi-stripe black belt that's fought for world championships, and I still get in there and I get humbled.
mm,
Um, and and that's a really cool opportunity because it shapes your character. You can be the best guy, you can be the most talented, best athlete on the planet, and you're still going to go in there and you're still going to get humbled, and you're still going to have the arduous process of shaping who you are, and it's physically a challenge, and it's mentally a challenge, and you're playing chess with the human body. Um, Kickboxing, I love it. Weight training, run, like there's some things I don't like to do, and I do those things more often because I don't like to do them.
yeah.
Because that's a test, right? Like I could do the things that I'm good at all the time, and then I'm only good at those things, but I want to work on the things that I'm not good at.
Yeah. And I think even trying new shit, like doing things that you haven't done before can have that effect as well. When you're the master at certain things, it's fun to do, but then go do something where you're the first guy, you're the beginner in the class all of a sudden, and it
Yeah,
sucks to go from that level. It's like graduating senior year of high school and being back on the bottom of the totem pole in college, but
yeah,
it humbles you and teaches some of that stuff. Is that what
yeah,
you see as well?
yeah, absolutely.
So, Tim, I mean, thank you for being so generous with your time. I know people are going to want to learn more about you if they don't know who you are already, but where would you point people to check you out? And what are some of the things that you've got coming up in the pipeline that you want people to know about?
I'm Tim Kennedy MMA on all social media, and then YouTube. I think I'm just Tim Kennedy. My school is apogeecedarpark.org, and then we have Apogee Strong, which is a online training for young men that kind of want to go into public service. Like if you want to be an Army Ranger or Green Beret or Navy SEAL or Marine or West Point or the Naval Academy, um, there's a pathway to get there.
Hmm.
That's apogeestrong.com. Um, and then everything else is just Tim Kennedy MMA. So just be a good human, be a good parent, be a good dad.
Yeah, some good resources for dads and for sons. Also, just any last pieces of wisdom or advice you might leave for dads or men in general?
Um, let your kids see you struggle.
Mm,
You don't have to be Superman all the time. I love taking my son rucksacking, so I put him in the back of
yeah.
my rucksack. His 60-pound butt, like tired, and he's sitting there and he's like bouncing. And I build a little seat for him with a sleeping bag, and but he sees sweat running off the back of my head and soaking my hat and going down to my shirt, and he sees the red um, blisters start from my rucksack straps, and then he sees it start to rub raw, and he goes, "Doesn't that hurt, Dad?" And I was like, yeah, it hurts, but we're not there yet, right? We still have 3 more miles to go,
Yeah.
and they see that.
Yeah. That gets ingrained deep,
Yeah,
not just to your shoulders either.
no,
Awesome. Well, Tim, I appreciate you, man. I'll let you
yeah,
get back to those little runs, but I appreciate your time.
yeah. Take care.
Yeah, you too.